Everything you think you know about dire wolves is wrong. They weren't wolves. They weren't closely related to wolves. And they hadn't shared a common ancestor with any living wolf for nearly 6 million years. The dire wolf, the most iconic predator of Ice Age North America, was something else entirely, something far older, something far stranger. And in 2021, ancient DNA finally proved it. This is the true story of America's most misunderstood predator, a beast that looked like a wolf, hunted like a wolf, but carried a secret hidden in its bones for over 100,000 years. Los Angeles, California. In the heart of one of the world's biggest cities sits a death trap, one that has been swallowing animals for over 50,000 years. The Brea Tar Pits. Beneath the surface of these bubbling asphalt pools lie the bones of mammoths, saber-toothed cats, giant ground sloths, and more dire wolves than any other mammal. Over 4,000 dire wolf specimens have been pulled from this single site. 400 of their skulls now hang on a single wall inside the museum, row after row of massive canine skulls staring out at visitors like ghosts from a vanished world. But La Brea didn't just preserve their bones, it preserved a mystery. Because when scientists finally read the DNA locked inside those fossils, the story of the dire wolf completely fell apart. The dire wolf was first described in 1858 when a fossil was found along the Ohio River in Indiana. The scientist who named it, Joseph Leidy, placed it in the genus Canis, the same genus as gray wolves, coyotes, and domestic dogs. He called it Canis dirus, dirus from the Latin for fearsome or dire. For over 150 years, that name stuck. Everyone assumed the dire wolf was simply a bigger, meaner version of the gray wolf, a super wolf. They roamed the Americas from at least 125,000 years ago until roughly 10,000 years ago. Their fossils have been found from Alberta to Bolivia, from coast to coast. They were everywhere, and they were built to kill. A dire wolf stood about as tall as the largest gray wolves alive today, around 3 feet at the shoulder, but it was heavier, significantly heavier. The eastern subspecies Aenocyon dirus averaged 68 kilograms, about 150 pounds. Some individuals may have pushed close to 240 pounds. Their heads were enormous. The skull could measure over 12 inches long, with a wider palate and more powerful jaw muscles than any wolf alive today. And their bite? The strongest of any known canid, living or extinct. Those jaws weren't designed for chasing rabbits. They were designed for clamping down on animals that could crush you: bison, horses, even juvenile mammoths. But here's what made the dire wolf different from a gray wolf in a way nobody expected. Its legs were shorter, its feet were smaller. This wasn't a pursuit predator built for long chases across open ground. This was an ambush killer, a heavyweight, a creature that hunted in packs not by outrunning prey but by overpowering it. Picture North America, 20,000 years ago. The Great Plains stretch endlessly under a pale sky broken by patches of pine and spruce forest. Herds of ancient bison, larger than any alive today, move across the landscape alongside western horses, camels, and ground sloths the size of cars. This was the dire wolf's supermarket. Isotope analysis of dire wolf bones from La Brea tells us exactly what they ate. Primarily juvenile bison and camels, supplemented by horses, pronghorns, ground sloths, and flat-headed peccaries. They weren't picky, they were opportunists, but they weren't alone at the table. The dire wolf shared its hunting grounds with the saber-toothed cat, Smilodon, and the American lion, a predator larger than any lion alive today. Competition was fierce. Chemical evidence from their bones proves all 3 species were going after the same prey. It was an arms race. and for over 100,000 years, the dire wolf held its own. For 160 years, scientists believed the dire wolf was a close cousin of the gray wolf. They looked alike. They were the same size. Their skulls were nearly identical. It seemed obvious. Then, in January 2021, a team of researchers published a study that changed everything. They had extracted and sequenced nuclear DNA from 5 dire wolf fossils, some dating back 50,000 years. What they found was shocking. The dire wolf was not closely related to gray wolves at all. Not even close. The two lineages had split apart 5.7 million years ago, long before modern wolves even existed. 5.7 million years. For perspective, humans and chimpanzees diverged about 6 to 7 million years ago. That means the dire wolf was about as closely related to a gray wolf as you are to a chimpanzee. The physical similarities, the skull shape, the body plan, the pack hunting, were all convergent evolution. Two completely unrelated lineages arriving at the same solution independently. The dire wolf was reclassified out of the genus Canis entirely and given its own genus, Aenocyon, ancient Greek for terrible wolf. Even more remarkably, the DNA showed zero evidence of hybridization between dire wolves and gray wolves, and canids are notorious hybridizers. Wolves breed with coyotes, dogs, even jackals, but not with dire wolves. They were so genetically distant that interbreeding was apparently impossible. They looked like wolves. They hunted like wolves, but they were not wolves. Around 13,000 years ago, the world began to change. The Ice Age was ending. Temperatures rose. Forests expanded where grasslands once stretched for hundreds of miles. And the megafauna, the giant animals that the dire wolf depended on, started to disappear. Horses vanished from North America. Camels were gone. Ancient bison populations crashed. Ground sloths disappeared into extinction. Recent research from Brea suggests a catastrophic series of wildfires, driven by both human activity and a warming, drying climate, swept through the ecosystem around 13,000 years ago, accelerating the collapse. The saber-toothed cat went extinct. The American lion went extinct, and the dire wolf, the most common large predator in the Americas for over 100,000 years, followed them into oblivion. The last confirmed dire wolf fossils date to roughly 10,000 years ago. Unlike gray wolves and coyotes, which were smaller, faster, and more adaptable, the dire wolf was too specialized. It had evolved to dominate a world of giants. When the giants disappeared, it had nothing left to hunt. The dire wolf is gone, but its story refuses to die. Game of Thrones made the name famous to a new generation, but the reality is more extraordinary than any fiction. An animal that fooled scientists for over a century. A predator so perfectly convergent with wolves that even experts couldn't tell the difference, until DNA revealed the truth. Today, 4,000 dire wolf specimens sit in the collections of the Brea Tar Pits Museum, the largest concentration of any Ice Age predator on Earth. Companies like Colossal Biosciences have even announced projects to attempt de-extinction to bring the dire wolf back. Whether that's possible remains to be seen, but what we do know is this. For over 100,000 years, the dire wolf was the apex pack hunter of the Americas. It wasn't a wolf. It was something that invented the idea of a wolf all on its own. And the fact that nature built the same predator twice on two separate continents from two completely different starting points. That might be the most remarkable thing of all. The dire wolf didn't just survive. It proved that some designs are so perfect, evolution creates them again and again.